Time now for a check of what's happening in the world of business. Our business editor, Kate Moody, is here. Hi there, Kate.
Hi, Tom.
Now, the UN Security Council holding an emergency meeting on the situation in Myanmar as we speak. You've been looking at the possible impact of all of these events in Myanmar the last couple of days on what was already a fragile economy.
Yeah, because instability and the threat of returning sanctions could really discourage international companies from doing any business there. Most of Myanmar's foreign business ties are in Asia, but condemnation by Western nations could still have a ripple effect. Ellen Gainsford reports.
There's a tense atmosphere on the streets of Myanmar's capital. Following Monday's military coup, the future of the country is uncertain. The outlook for the economy is bleak. Credit ratings agency Fitch has downgraded its growth forecast from 5.6% to 2% for 2021. Local businesses are worried about the potential effect on their prospects.
It would be more difficult for international countries to work here if Myanmar is put under sanctions. If that happens, then they will leave Myanmar to maintain their image.
Western leaders have condemned the military's actions, and Washington is threatening sanctions if democracy isn't restored. Although there's limited trade between the two nations. Business between the US and Myanmar was worth $1.3 billion in the first 11 months of 2020. But analysts warn the repercussions of the coup could still be devastating.
You're going to see boycotts of the country, potentially. You're going to see major sanctions slapped on, not just the senior leaders of the military who are, in many cases, already sanctioned, but a tightening of the screws on a range of different companies.
Most foreign investment in Myanmar comes from Asia. Last year, Singapore accounted for 34% of overall investment, then Hong Kong at 26%. Experts say that companies thinking twice about investing in Myanmar could turn to China as an alternative, further weakening the economy of what's already one of the region's poorest countries.
Well, the economies of the Eurozone and its member states saw their biggest drop since the Second World War last year because of the coronavirus pandemic, but the contraction wasn't quite as sharp as initial estimates had projected. Data from Eurostat showed GDP in the single currency bloc shrank 0.7% in the final quarter and 6.8% for 2020 as a whole. The economies of Germany and Spain grew slightly compared to the third quarter, while France and Germany dropped in the last 3 months of the year. The overall declines for the year, 5%, 11%, and over 8%, were the worst in decades. Well, analysts say that while those figures were better than expected, the short-term prospects remain very uncertain. Ongoing restrictions and the troubled rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine pose significant risks to the economic recovery. GDP is expected to drop in the first 3 months of the year, which would pull the Eurozone back into a double-dip recession. Let's check in on the day's trading action now. The major European indices closed higher. The Frankfurt DAX and Paris CAC 40 both gaining over 1.5%. London's FTSE 100 about 0.75%. Shares of energy giant BP dropped 4.5% in London as it reported its first full-year net loss in a decade. Wall Street's trending sharply higher, the Dow Jones jumping 600 points, the Nasdaq adding to yesterday's gains. It's up 1.7% this hour. The investments that have become the focus of activist traders have been dropping. Silver, for example, down 5% today after rising 11% yesterday. Shares of GameStop slid 30% on Monday, and they're down a further 50% in today's trade. Coordinated groups of amateur traders had been pouring money into the shares of that struggling video game store chain, hoping to squeeze the big hedge funds who had bet against the company's fortunes. Analysts say their luck was bound to run out, but it has really shaken up Wall Street, and it could lead to more oversight going forward. Pfizer expects the COVID-19 vaccine that it developed with BioNTech to bring in $15 billion in sales this year. The American pharmaceutical giant projects that will represent about a quarter of its overall sales in 2021. The company reported $9.6 billion in profits for 2020, about 40% lower than the previous year, but it's among the leaders in the vaccine race so far. Along with Moderna, Pfizer and BioNTech have said that they will be taking profits from their COVID-19 vaccine, while AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson have said that they'll make their jabs available on a non-for-profit basis for the duration of the pandemic. And this, of course, Tom, all feeding into the discussion about the role that the pharmaceutical industry plays and perhaps should be playing on a moral basis, as well as, of course, the medical procedures.
Sure, it's surprising anyway that profit should be down 40% despite being leaders, as you said there, in the race for a vaccine. Thank you very much indeed, our business editor, Kate Moody. Thanks a lot.